Hello and welcome. We're going to make a little baseball for our cat friends today. The things you'll need to make this toy are worsted weight yarn in a color for your ball and a contrasting color for your stitches. Doesn't have to be white and red, it could be whatever colors you want. You'll need a 4mm crochet hook or G hook, depending on what your hooks are labeled as. Some yarn needles. You'll need some scissors. You'll need some stuffing, any kind of stuffing. I just use like polyfill, but whatever you want to put in your toys is fine with me. Optional, dried catnip can go in there, and if you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, I do have a collection of patterns out. It's available on Amazon. There's a link in my bio if you're interested, and our little baseball is in there. So that is everything you'll need. So it's worked in 2 pieces. We sew them together, we fill it with stuffing. It's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and get started. So we'll be making 2 pieces to get started. We're going to make a slip knot, so we're just crossing our working end over the short end, and then from the back we'll pull through a loop of that longer yarn. We're going to go into the loop you just created and just kind of pull in until that loop becomes small enough to just be a little stitch, and then from here we're going to chain 13. So we're going to wrap, pull through, and you're going to keep doing that until you have 13 chains, and then we'll start working our way down the chain. So we finished our 13 chains. If you're counting all of them, including the slip knot and the one on the hook there, it's going to be a count of 14, but you've only created 13 chains. We are going to work a half double crochet into the second chain from our hook, so not that one, but the next one. So we're wrapping our yarn, we're going in there, wrap again to pull up. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to wrap and pull through all 3 of those. We're going to keep going into that same space until we have 6 half double crochets worked into that one loop. So you'll start to see as we're adding on there that will create kind of a rounded top at the very top here where that chain is. So we've got 1 more to go, and it'll look like a stick with a little fan at the top, right? So we're going to keep going from there. We're going to have 3 half double crochets, so we're working 1 into each stitch down that chain. So we're going in 1, and then you're going into the next one, so we're not doubling up here at all. 1 more half double crochet, and then we're going to switch our stitches for the next 4. So the next 4 chains will be working a single crochet into each. Two more here. And then we've got 3 half double crochets again, so we're just kind of repeating in the opposite order. And that half double crochet will wrap first, go in, wrap to pull up, and then wrap to pull through all 3. 1 more here. And then we have 1 last chain on the side. We're going to half double crochet 6 into this as well. So we've got a nice round shape from either end. So go ahead and keep going until you have those 6 in there, and we'll meet back to work the other side. So we finished the 6 at the other end, and you can see it's kind of like a little canoe shape. We're working down the other side of our chain. So instead of having that clear like chain shape here, just kind of those bumps in the back that we're going to go into. We've got 3 half double crochets going in, and then going for the next stitch over. 1 more here, and then we've got 4 single crochets down the next 4 stitches. So those 4 single crochets next, just going in, pull up. So we wrap to pull up, wrap, pull through 2. A little simpler. And then once you have all 4, we're coming back around for those 3 half double crochets. And that will take us all the way back to where we started. Once we get there, we are going to slip stitch into the very first stitch we made. So you can see mine's kind of curling in. I'm going to open it up a little so I can get the V shape from the top of that very first half double crochet stitch. Wrapping my yarn, pulling through the next one. And that's the first kind of double row or round, however you want to think about it. So for our next one, we're going to chain 2. And then we are going to half double crochet 2 stitches into the next stitch, or 6, sorry, into the next 6 stitches. So we're going around, going into the one we just slip stitched into, pulling through all 3, and then we're going in there again to create a little increase, making that a little wider across the top. So you're going to keep going until you've made 12, so 2 into each of the next 6, and then I'll meet you back and it'll be a little different on our way down. Okay, so those half double crochet increases across the top are done. We are going to keep working our way down. This time we are going to have 3 single crochets in the next 3 stitches. So just 1 single crochet in each of the next 3. 1 more. And then for those 4 middle stitches, we are going to slip stitch. And we want to make this as loose as we can so that it doesn't pull in, it stays on the outside, and we can still get into those stitches later because we're going to be working our way through them in a little bit. So we're going in and then slipping right out that stitch that we're leaving behind. So we're going in, we'll wrap our yarn, pull through, and then 2 more like that. And once you get to the end of this 4, we're going to repeat those 3 single crochets. That will take us back to the top of the next curve, and we're going to half double crochet 2 into each of the next 6 stitches. Oh my gosh, my brain does not want to say that today. So doubling up. So we got 2, and we're going to work 2 into all of those across the top. So you should end up with either 6 sets of increase or 12 half double crochets, however you feel like counting them. And then we'll meet back to work our way back down, and we're almost done with piece number 1. So the last bit of the second side, our little canoes, looking a little bit more like a sled. So we're going to do a single crochet, 1 in each of those next 3 stitches. So once you've created 3, we're going to do 4 slip stitches in the next 4. So just like on that first side, we're trying to make them loose enough that we can use them later, and so that they don't pull in and kind of throw off where your stitches are. Okay, and then 3 single crochets again. These will be the stitches that take us all the way back to the beginning. And once you finish that last single crochet, just like before, we're going to find the top of that very first stitch that we made for this round. Don't mind the cat hair sticking out of there. And we'll slip stitch that together. And that is piece number 1. We've got just a tiny bit more work to do before we make the second one, and then we're going to sew them together. So leaving like a medium length tail, nothing crazy long, but we do want enough that we can use it to kind of pull that hole there closed. So we're just going to wrap, pull through to tie off, and then we're going to collect our yarn needle and finish this piece off. Starting with the tail on the end that doesn't have quite as big an opening there, we're just working our way through the back. So we're going to weave through every other little leg of our stitches and the very first little chunk of stitches there. And when you get back to the beginning, we'll pull on that little piece of yarn a little just to make sure there's no gaps there, no gaping, and then we'll just kind of slip into wherever so we can create a knot. And we're going to shorten this tail a little bit, but we don't need to worry about weaving it in anywhere else or even cutting it all the way back because it'll just stay floating around on the inside. On the other side, we are going to thread that onto our yarn needle again. And I just want to be careful that whichever way you pull it, that beginning knot is laying flat to the toy, so it doesn't look lumpy or weird when we get going. I'm just kind of weaving through a couple of those stitches to get it toward the back and toward that first, or that little rounding clump. I'm not sure how to describe it. So if we were to just lace through from here and then pull it tight, it might pull this little corner in because that's where that thread's coming from. So I'm going to knot it off here, holding where the thread's coming from. So as I pull that knot tight, I don't pull the thread through anywhere. So it keeps that nice round shape. Now I'll go through those stitches just like we did on the first part. Just grabbing one leg of each. And then you can pull it and you'll see it starts to close up. Missed this first half here, so I'm just going to go back through there. And then we can just go through the top and the bottom to finish off our little knot here. Going through, and then wherever that last loop is, we'll create that knot. Now we can give it a little pull. You can see that little opening is no more. Now it's just white yarn showing through. So same thing with that tail. If it's still too long for you, you feel like it might get in your way, you can just give it a little trim. I'm going to go ahead and make a second one, and then we'll sew them together. We've got our matching pieces, and now we just need a contrasting color to stitch it all together. I almost always end up with too long of a piece, but we want to make sure that it's at least long enough to get all the way around as we are stitching through. So we do want to just create a length and cut it off, and then we'll use our yarn needle to thread that through, and we're going to tie it to whichever one, doesn't matter, and then we'll start to stitch them together. So we'll be tying it to one end, it doesn't matter which end you want to start on, of our 4 slip stitches. That's kind of the center here. So we want to grab the inside, or the one that's, I guess technically it's the outside, but when we start it'll be the inside loop of that little V at the top of the stitch there. And that's where we'll knot it onto our toy to keep it secure. That way you won't see that very first piece as we go, because we'll be using the other side of that V to stitch them together. And that tail and that knot will stay toward the inside of the toy, so it'll be basically just invisible here. So how we're going to line these up is you're going to find the 4 center stitches on this round bit. So these 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, these 4 here. Now if you're off a little bit, the round shape will be a little less round, but it's not the end of the world. So you're just lining them up. So this is my 4th and that beginning there. These are the 2 I'm going to start with, and then I'm going all the way around. When we have just a little bit of an opening left, that's where we'll add our stuffing and things before we close it off. So we're taking the yarn needle, and again now we want the one that's on the opposite side. We're going to pull through until they're connected. Now we'll just be able to follow along, pushing that to the inside. So here's the tricky part, getting the baseball stitch going. we want to come from across the top into the stitch across, and then we pull that through. Once we get past this part where the little knot is, that little clump, it'll be a lot easier to kind of see what you're doing. So just pulling that to the inside, you can already see it's a little cleaner with that knot out of the way. So again, we're going over the top, so we're going this way and under the stitch across from it. And pull. So we go over and under the next one. Oh, I accidentally caught my scissors. And again, we're just going stitch to stitch. So you go over that one, under the next, over to go under the next, and you can start to see that seam, that little like baseball seam coming along. So you go over that to go under, and you just basically keep going all the way until you got just maybe like an inch and a half opening, so we can put our things around. And you'll start to see as it comes together, it starts to create that ball shape. So keep going, keep sewing, and we'll sew together. We'll meet back for adding our stuffing and finishing off the last bits. Okay, we've got enough stitches around with just a little bit of an opening here for our catnip and our stuffing. So if you're going to add catnip, I always recommend adding it before your stuffing, that way it doesn't fall out. I'm going to go ahead and shove some in there. Gets a little messy, but that's okay. It kind of has a tendency to stick to the stuffing too, so if you do get a bit of a mess all along the outside, you can sometimes just collect it like Velcro with the stuffing. So polyfill next, or whatever you are stuffing your toy with. I usually give mine a little fluff, make it a little bigger in there. So then you're just going to start jamming that in there. As you go, you're just kind of getting every little corner, every little pocket of that to make the ball as round as possible. And once you have all your stuffing in there, the stitching isn't going to change. We're just going to keep going all the way, the rest of the way around. And when we get to the last stitch, the only thing we'll do different there is just tie off. And just like with most of our cat toys, we won't have to weave in the end or anything. We just kind of tie it off and pull it through the toy. So I've got almost enough stuffing with just that first batch. Just pushing it in to make sure that the ball looks nice and round. And I'll add a little bit more to mine. You can do whatever you like with yours. And once all that's in there, we're just making sure that none of it's poking out so it doesn't get caught in our stitches as we work our way around. And again, we're just finishing it off. So you're going across the top of the stitch that you're coming from, underneath the stitch you're going into, over and over and over again. Just kind of makes that stitch nice and visible on the outside, giving it that traditional baseball look. This is where you'll know whether or not you did a good job of making sure you got every single stitch. Both pieces have the same number of stitches on them, so when you get to the end, you should end up with the same number of last pieces here. Ooh. I might have had one extra somewhere, but that's okay. As long as you're not too far off, you'll still be a nice round ball shape. All right, so that very last one, I'm gonna take it, I'm just gonna tie it to my first red stitch and pull that knot. Give my ball a little squish. Make sure it's staying nice and round. And then taking that tail through the toy, putting a little tension, give it a snip, give it a little massage so that tail pops back into our toy, and then it's all done. You got your little ball, and then you can go give it to your little kitty cat friend.